Salvete discipuli. So today's video is the first video in chapter 15 in Latin for the New Millennium, and you're going to learn how to form the future active and passive for the third io, and fourth conjugation verbs. Now, you've already learned in chapter 14 how to form the future for first and second, but third io, and fourth are going to form that future in a completely different way. So it is important that you guys take careful notes, that you listen to what I'm saying, and that you're writing down what's printed, and that you're also writing out the charts. Now, I understand that this is going to be a very chart-heavy video, but I want you to understand the process of forming it and then have those examples, okay? So, to form the future of the first two conjugations, just as a little review, you take the present stem and you put the future endings on it, right? For active, bo, bis, bit, bimus, bitus, bunt. For passive is bor, beris, bitor, bimor, bimini, buntor, okay? And you can do this because the present stem for the first two conjugations end in a vowel. But if you remember, the present stem for the third and the third io does not end in a vowel, because in order to get the present stem, you remove the entire ere from the second principal part. Now, for the fourth conjugation, the present stem actually does have a vowel on the end of it because you just remove the re from the second principal part. But it's still going to form in the same way as the third and third io, or at least in the same pattern. What you absolutely need to understand from the very beginning is that third io, and fourth conjugation verbs never form the future using bo, bis, bit, or bor, beris, bitor at all. Those endings form the future only for the first two conjugations. Third io, and fourth is different, okay? Now, to form the future active and passive for the third io, and fourth conjugations, what you do is you get your present stem, and then you change the present vowel to the future vowel, okay? So I give you just a quick little example here to show you what I mean. An I tells you that you're in the present for third io, and fourth. So, for example, a get, he drives. But you have to change that vowel to the future vowel, a get, which is he will drive, okay? The future vowel is E or IE, depending on if it's third io, and fourth, except for in the first person singular where it's A and IA, okay? And then it's to that future vowel onto which you add these personal endings. The personal endings for the active are M, S, T, must, tis, nt. And the passive are r, ris, ter, mer, mini, and ter. Now, those endings are familiar to you because they're the personal endings for the present tense. I mean, that makes sense. And then you just change the vowel from the present vowel to the future vowel, and that's how you form the future for the third io, and fourth. Now, with that having been said, let me give you some information. What this means in practice is that the only difference between the second person singular present passive indicative and the second person singular future passive indicative for the third conjugation is a macron. So that macron in the future is a very important macron, and I'll emphasize that when I show you the charts. The second person singular present passive indicative is one of the few instances when the third io and the fourth conjugations don't look identical. And as we go along, I'm going to review the present passive as you learn the future passive, just to be able to emphasize some of these differences. So to remind you, you form the present active indicative this way for the third conjugation verbs. Now this chart is just for third. I'm going to do one set for third conjugation, another for third io, and a third set for the fourth conjugation. You know this. First person singular is the first principal part, and then after that you need the present stem. You need to add the I or the you for the third person plural, and then the personal endings, right? ST, must, isn't, okay? And the present active infinitive is the second principal part. Easy peasy. To remind you how to form the present passive indicative, you have your first principal part plus the R for the first person singular, and then for the rest of them, you have the present stem, you add the vowel, and then you put the personal passive ending on it. So for second person singular, that's present stem plus an E without the macron, and that no macron is important, plus ris. Present stem for for third singular, first and second plural, it's present stem plus I plus the endings. And then for third plural, it's present stem plus you plus the ending, okay? And then the present passive infinitive for third conjugation verbs is the second principal part. You remove the ERE, and then you add an I, okay? Now, for the future active, you're going to get your present stem. For the first person singular only, you add an A instead of an E, and then you add the personal ending M, okay? And then for the rest of the persons and numbers, second and third singular, first, second, and third plural, you get the present stem, you add an E, and then you add those personal endings. So that's how you change that I present vowel to an E future vowel, and then that tells you that you're in the future. For the passive, same thing. Present stem plus an A for the first person singular only, plus the R. And then for the rest of them, the second and third singular, first, second, and third plural, you get your present stem plus the E plus the passive endings. But again, remember, this E in the second person singular has a macron, and that's important because that's the only difference between this form, the future passive indicative, and this form, the present passive indicative. Okay? So let's see how this looks on an actual verb. Our verb is ago, agere, agi, actum. We form the present ago, ages, aget, agemus, getus, gunt. The present infinitive is agere, which you guys know. This is just a review. Passive, agor, ageris, agetor, agemor, agemini, aguntor, and then agi is the present passive infinitive to be driven. Now the future, we have our present stem, our A plus the ending, and then for the rest of them, our present stem, the E plus the endings, okay? So that looks like agam, I will drive, agase, you will drive, aget, he, she, or it will drive, agamus, we will drive, agatus, y'all will drive, and agent, they will drive. And then in the passive, agar, ageris, and again, do you see how important that macron is in the second person singular? Ageris looks a lot like ageris here in the present passive, right? But that macron tells you you're in the future. You will be driven. Agator, agamor, agamini, agentor. Okay? Now, 3rd-io is going to be similar, but just like with the present, the 3rd-io, for the most part, has to retain its I. And I say for the most part because I'm going to show you the exception for that in just 1 second. Present active indicative for 3rd-io verbs, and again, we're moving on to the next set, 3rd-io, is first person singular, first principal part, always. Second person, third person singular, first and second person plural is present stem, I plus the endings. And then third person plural is present stem plus IU plus the ending NT. And of course, the present active infinitive is the second principal part. In the passive, it's the first principal part plus R. The second person singular is the present stem plus a short E plus res. And again, this is actually a review. You already know this. But it doesn't retain its I, and that's kind of important. And then the rest of it forms the way you expect. Third singular, first, second plural is present stem plus I plus the endings. Third person plural is present stem plus IU plus the ending. And then the third conjugation, 3rd-io, forms its present passive infinitive the same way as the third conjugation in general, which is the second principal part minus ERE, that being replaced with the I. Okay. For the future, you're going to follow a very similar pattern. The only difference is that you have to retain your I. So instead of it just being present stem plus A plus M like it is for the third, it's present stem plus IA plus M for the first person singular. And then for the second and third singular, first, second, and third plural, it's present stem plus IE plus those endings. Okay? And same in the plural. First person singular, future passive, in the plural. Good Lord, in the passive is what I mean. I'm so sorry. First person singular is present stem plus IA plus R. And then for the second and third singular, first, second, and third plural, it's present stem plus IE plus these endings. Okay. So if we want to see what that looks like on an actual verb, that would be capiō, capere, cēpī, captum. In the present active indicative, we get capiō, capis, capit, capimus, capitis, capiunt, and capere to be our present active infinitive. In the passive, capior, caperis, capitor, capimor, capimini, capiuntor. And then cēpī to be our present passive infinitive. In the future, again, we have our replacement of the present vowel with the future vowel. So we get capiam, capiēs, capiet, capiamus, capiatus, capiunt. And again, you know you're in the future because we have that future vowel being used, okay? And then in the passive, capiar, capieris, capietur, capiamor, capiamini, capientor. All right, the fourth conjugation is going to look a lot like the 3rd-io. The difference, of course, is going to be the second person singular present passive, but you know, you guys are used to that already because that's actually a review. Again, present active indicative for the fourth conjugation is first principal part, and then after that we get our present stem plus the endings, okay? And the second principal part of course, is the present active infinitive. And the passive, the first principal part plus the R. For the rest of it, the present stem plus the I or IU plus the endings. The future is going to be present stem plus IE, right? Technically, actually, I guess it's just the present stem plus the I and the E, just like third, but you will have that I because the present stem ends with the I. And then for the future as well. To see how that looks on an actual verb, we have audiō, audīre, audīvī, audītum. And so for the present active indicative, audiō, audīs, audit, audimus, audītus, audium. And then the present active infinitive is audīre, to hear. The passive, audior, audīris, auditor, audīmor, audīmini, audiuntor. And then our present passive infinitive is audīre. And again, because it forms a little bit differently than the 3rd-io. It forms like a first two, actually. In the future, again, like 3rd-io, you have to retain your I. So audiam, audiēs, audiet, audiamus, audītus, audient, right? Audiam, I will hear. And then in the future passive, audiar, I will be heard. Audīris, audietur, audiamor, audiamini, audientor. Now, please take good notes. I will check them tomorrow in class, and I hope you have a lovely, lovely evening. Walete.